People say the American dream crashed and burned somewhere around Detroit. I say it just started drinking heavily and moved to smaller towns like Millfield, where it could embarrass itself in private. My name is Ray Dempsey, and I own a used car lot that specializes in selling hope to people who can't afford better options. At 38, I've learned that life has a twisted sense of humor. Take my marriage, for instance. 15 years with Linda, and I thought we had something solid. Sure, we fought about money, about Megan's attitude, about my long hours at the lot, but I figured that was normal married couple stuff. Turns out normal was just the warm-up act. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday morning in March. I was drinking coffee from my favorite mug, the one with the chip on the handle that Linda always nagged me to throw away, when I noticed lipstick on the rim. Problem was, Linda doesn't wear red lipstick. Never has. She's always been a pale pink kind of woman, conservative in everything from her clothes to her politics. "Hey, Lynn," I called toward the bathroom where she was getting ready for work. "You switch makeup brands or something?" She appeared in the doorway, mascara wand in hand, looking genuinely confused. "What are you talking about, Ray?" I held up the mug. "Red lipstick on my coffee cup." Her face went through this interesting sequence of expressions: confusion, recognition, then something that looked almost like panic before settling on irritation. "Megan must have used it. You know how teenagers are, always experimenting." Made sense, I guess. Our 14-year-old daughter had been testing boundaries lately, staying out past curfew, arguing about everything from homework to household chores. Still, something about Linda's explanation felt off. Maybe it was the way she wouldn't meet my eyes, or how quickly she retreated back to the bathroom mirror. I work in a business where reading people is essential. When someone walks onto my lot, I can usually tell within 5 minutes whether they're serious buyers, tire kickers, or just passing time before their next appointment. It's all about the details: how they hold themselves, where their eyes go, what questions they ask. Linda was giving off the same vibe as someone trying to negotiate down the price on a car they can't actually afford. The lot sits on the edge of town, wedged between a defunct textile mill and a Dollar General that sees more action than a Friday night emergency room. I've got about 40 cars on the lot at any given time, ranging from barely running beaters to decent family sedans, with only minor cosmetic issues. Nothing fancy, but honest transportation for honest people trying to get by. My employee Tanya arrived at 8:30, same as always. She's 29, tough as leather, and has a mouth that could strip paint. She also happens to be the best judge of character I've ever met, which makes her invaluable when dealing with customers who think they can pull fast ones. "Morning, boss," she said, unlocking the trailer that serves as our office. "You look like someone stole your lunch money." "Marriage troubles," I said, following her inside. "Linda giving you grief again?" Tanya poured herself coffee from the ancient machine that probably predated the Clinton administration. "What's her complaint this week? You working too hard, not working hard enough, or breathing too loud?" "Something like that." I didn't feel like getting into the lipstick situation. It sounded paranoid even in my own head. The morning passed quietly. A few customers wandered through, mostly looking for something cheap and reliable. I sold a 2015 Honda Civic to a college kid whose parents were footing the bill, and helped an elderly woman find a low-mileage Corolla that would probably outlast both of us. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Around noon, I decided to surprise Linda with lunch. She works at Morrison's Books, a small independent bookstore downtown that somehow manages to stay afloat despite Amazon's best efforts. I picked up sandwiches from the deli next door and headed over. The bookstore occupies the ground floor of a converted Victorian house, all narrow aisles and creaky wooden floors. Linda was behind the counter helping a customer find something in the romance section. She looked up when I entered, and for just a second, I saw something flash across her face. Not pleasure at seeing me, more like someone caught doing something they shouldn't be doing. "Ray?" she said, forcing a smile. "What brings you by?" "Thought you might be hungry." I held up the bag from the deli. "Turkey and Swiss, extra mustard." "That's sweet, but I actually brought lunch today." She gestured toward a brown bag sitting behind the register. "Maybe save it for dinner?" Strange. Linda never brought lunch to work. She always complained about not having time in the morning, and she genuinely enjoyed getting out of the store for a few minutes during her break. But there was the bag, and there was her polite but firm dismissal. I left the sandwich anyway and drove back to the lot, that uneasy feeling growing stronger. Tanya took one look at my face and shook her head. "Okay, spill it. What's eating you?" So I told her about the lipstick, about Linda's weird reaction to my surprise visit, about the general sense that something was off in my marriage. Tanya listened without interrupting, which was unusual for her. "You want my honest opinion?" she said when I finished. "Always. Linda's having an affair." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I'd been dancing around the possibility without actually naming it, but hearing it said out loud made it real in a way that terrified me. "You think so?" "Ray, I've been married 3 times. I know the signs, the weird schedules, the defensiveness, the way she looked when you showed up at the store today. Trust me, she's stepping out." I spent the rest of the day in a fog, mechanically going through the motions of running the business while my mind churned through possibilities. Who could it be? Someone from the bookstore? A customer? A neighbor? The answer came sooner than I expected. I was closing up around 6 when I saw a familiar car parked across the street. A red Dodge Charger, maybe 3 years old, with custom rims and tinted windows. I knew that car because I'd sold it 8 months ago to Pete Rinaldi, a guy who used to do plumbing before he decided he was going to make his fortune flipping houses. Pete was sitting behind the wheel, engine running, talking on his phone. He didn't notice me watching him from the lot office. After about 10 minutes, he drove off, heading in the direction of my neighborhood. My house sits on Maple Street, a tree-lined avenue of modest 2-story homes built in the 50s when people still believed in the promise of suburban life. I'd lived there for 12 years, watched neighbors come and go, seen kids grow up and move away. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, which made Pete's presence all the more interesting. I parked in my driveway and sat for a moment, looking at my house. The porch light was on, casting a warm glow over the front steps where Linda had planted flowers last spring. Everything looked normal, peaceful even. But normal was starting to feel like a foreign concept. Linda was in the kitchen when I came in, stirring something on the stove that smelled like tomato sauce and oregano. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater I'd given her for Christmas. "How was your day?" she asked without turning around. "Fine, sold a couple cars, dealt with the usual nonsense." I watched her carefully. "Saw Pete Rinaldi's Charger parked near the lot today. Funny thing is, he was heading this way when he left." Linda's stirring slowed for just a moment. "Pete Rinaldi? I don't think I know him." "Sure you do. Used to be a plumber. Now he's trying to be a real estate mogul. Bought that red Charger from me last year. Good-looking guy? Smooth talker." "Doesn't ring a bell." She turned to face me, wooden spoon in hand. "Why would I know him?" "No reason. Just thought maybe he'd been by the bookstore or something." We ate dinner in relative silence, making small talk about Megan's grades and the weather forecast. But I was watching Linda's face, looking for tells, and I was finding them. The way she avoided eye contact when discussing her day. The nervous laugh when I mentioned running errands after work. The quick subject changes whenever I brought up specific times or places. After dinner, I helped with dishes while Linda went upstairs to check on Megan's homework. I was loading the dishwasher when my phone buzzed with a text message. The number wasn't in my contacts, but the message was short and direct. "Check your wife's phone." I stared at the screen, heart hammering. Someone was trying to tell me something, and they were being careful about it. Anonymous tip, probably from someone who knew both Linda and me well enough to have my number, but didn't want to get directly involved. Linda came back downstairs and settled on the couch with a book. I joined her, pretending to watch television while my mind raced through possibilities. Her phone was sitting on the coffee table, face down, which was unusual. Linda typically kept her phone face up so she could see notifications. Around 10 o'clock, she excused herself for a shower. The moment I heard the bathroom door close, I grabbed her phone. It was locked, of course, but I knew Linda's passcode. She'd used Megan's birthday for everything from bank accounts to email passwords. The phone opened immediately, and I went straight to her text messages. The conversation with Pete Rinaldi was right there, third from the top. Months of messages, starting casual and becoming increasingly intimate. Plans to meet for coffee, complaints about me being distant and focused on work, detailed discussions about Pete's house-flipping projects and his dreams of financial independence. And then, more recently, messages that made my stomach turn. Arrangements to meet at Pete's rental house on Oak Street. Discussions about how to handle the Ray situation. References to changing bank passwords and consulting a lawyer about divorce proceedings. The most recent exchange was from earlier that day. Linda. He's getting suspicious. Asked about your car. Pete. Don't worry about it. We're almost ready to make our move anyway. Linda. I just need a little more time to get everything arranged. Pete. How much more time? Linda. Few more weeks, maybe a month. Pete. I'm getting tired of sneaking around. Linda. Soon, baby. I promise. I took screenshots of the most damaging messages and sent them to my own phone, then deleted the evidence of the transfer. My hands were shaking as I put Linda's phone back on the coffee table, exactly where she'd left it. The shower was still running upstairs. I sat on the couch, staring at the television without seeing it, trying to process what I'd discovered. My wife of 15 years was planning to leave me for a wannabe real estate investor with a flashy car and big dreams. She was already making financial preparations, probably moving money around, setting up her exit strategy. But what really got to me was the casual way they discussed the Ray situation, like I was a problem to be solved rather than a human being with feelings and rights. Like I was some obstacle standing between them and their happily ever after. The shower shut off upstairs. I heard Linda moving around in the bedroom, probably getting ready for bed. In a few minutes, she'd come downstairs, kiss me goodnight, and pretend everything was normal. She'd lie next to me in our bed, probably thinking about Pete and their secret plans. Not anymore. I went to my laptop and started doing research. Pete Rinaldi had a Facebook page full of photos showing off his latest house projects and his expensive toys. His relationship status was listed as single, which was interesting since he'd been married when he bought the car from me. I found his ex-wife's profile and started taking notes. I also looked up divorce lawyers, property law, and custody arrangements. If Linda wanted to play games with lawyers and financial planning, I needed to understand the rules. My phone buzzed again. Another anonymous text. Tomorrow, Oak Street, 2 p.m. Someone was watching Linda and Pete, someone who wanted me to see what was happening. A neighbor, maybe, or a friend who felt guilty about keeping secrets. It didn't matter who. What mattered was that I now had confirmation, evidence, and an opportunity to see the affair firsthand. I deleted both anonymous messages and closed the laptop. Linda came downstairs in her robe, looking relaxed and content. Good shower? I asked. Very relaxing. She curled up next to me on the couch, resting her head on my shoulder. I love you, Ray. The words should have meant something. A year ago, they would have meant everything. Now they just sounded like another lie, another layer of deception in what had apparently become an elaborate performance. Love you too, I said, and for the first time in our marriage, I was lying right back. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time Linda shifted in bed, every small sound she made, I wondered if she was thinking about Pete. When her phone buzzed with a late-night text, she checked it immediately, claiming it was just a reminder about a book order. The casual way she lied to my face was almost impressive in its audacity. Morning came gray and cold, typical March weather in Millfield. Linda went through her usual routine: shower, coffee, quick breakfast while checking her phone. She kissed my cheek before leaving for work, the same perfunctory gesture she'd been making for months. I used to think it meant something. Now it felt like a signature on a document I hadn't bothered to read. At the lot, Tanya took one look at my face and poured an extra cup of coffee. "You look terrible," she said. "Please tell me you didn't spend all night staring at the ceiling." Found some interesting reading material on Linda's phone last night. "And? You were right, Pete Rinaldi, been going on for months." Tanya set down her coffee cup with more force than necessary. "That smooth-talking piece of garbage? Ray, I'm sorry. I really hoped I was wrong. They're planning to make their move soon, talking about lawyers, changing passwords, the whole thing. What are you going to do?" Good question. The old Ray might have confronted Linda directly, demanded explanations, tried to save the marriage through counseling or heartfelt conversations about what went wrong. But the old Ray had been operating under the assumption that his wife was fundamentally honest, that their marriage was worth fighting for, that 15 years of shared history meant something. The new Ray was learning that assumptions could be dangerous. "I'm going to beat them at their own game," I said. "They want to play with lawyers and financial planning? Fine, but I'm going to play to win." My first stop was the bank. Linda and I had joint accounts, joint credit cards, the usual married couple financial arrangement. What she probably didn't realize was that I'd been the primary account holder on most of them, which gave me certain privileges. I closed our joint savings account and moved the money to a new account in my name only. I canceled our shared credit cards and opened new ones. I changed the passwords on all our online banking and redirected all statements to a post office box I rented under my business name. It took about 2 hours to untangle 15 years of shared finances, and when I was finished, Linda's access to our money had been effectively eliminated. She still had her personal checking account and her paycheck from the bookstore, but the safety net was gone. Next stop was the utility companies. The house was in both our names, but I was listed as the primary contact. I had the electricity, gas, and water transferred to my name only, which meant Linda couldn't make changes without my authorization. I didn't shut anything off. I wasn't trying to make Megan suffer, but I wanted control. Then I visited our insurance agent and made some adjustments to our policies. Again, nothing that would harm Megan, but several changes that would complicate Linda's life if she decided to make any sudden moves. By noon, I'd essentially locked Linda out of our financial life. She probably wouldn't realize it immediately, but the next time she tried to access our savings or use a credit card, she'd get a very unpleasant surprise. I grabbed lunch and drove to Oak Street, parking where I could see Pete's rental house without being obvious about it. It was a small ranch-style place with peeling paint and an overgrown yard, the kind of property that looked like a good investment to someone who didn't understand the difference between potential and money pit. At exactly 2 o'clock, Linda's car pulled into the driveway. I watched my wife of 15 years walk up to another man's front door like she owned the place. She didn't knock, just used a key, which meant this had been going on long enough for Pete to give her access to his house. They were inside for about an hour. I spent the time taking photos with my phone, documenting the timeline, building a case. When Linda finally emerged, her hair was messed up, and her clothes were wrinkled. Pete followed her to the car, kissed her goodbye like they were a real couple, and waved as she drove away. I waited until Linda was gone, then got out of my car and walked up Pete's driveway. He answered the door in a bathrobe, looking relaxed and satisfied. When he saw me, his face went through the same sequence of expressions Linda's had with the lipstick incident: confusion, recognition, panic. "Ray," he said, trying to recover his composure. Hey man, what brings you by? Just wanted to thank you for taking such good care of my wife, I said. Really above and beyond customer service. Pete's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. Linda's been telling me all about your afternoon visits. Very thorough service calls. Look, Ray, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. I stepped closer, close enough that Pete had to look up at me. I'm not a big guy, but I've got about 3 inches and 20 pounds on him, and I was angry enough that it probably showed. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. You're going to stay away from my wife. You're going to stop taking her calls, stop answering her texts, stop playing house in this dump you call an investment property. And if I find out you've contacted her again, I'm going to make your life very complicated. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm educating you. See, I know things about you, Pete. I know you're behind on your mortgage payments. I know you've got 3 different credit cards maxed out. I know your ex-wife is still waiting for the alimony you promised her in your divorce settlement. Pete's confident facade cracked a little more. How do you... I'm in the business of knowing things about people. And here's something else I know. Small-town gossip spreads faster than a house fire. One word from me in the right ears, and everyone in Millfield will know exactly what kind of man you really are. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Pete? That charger you bought from me? The extended warranty expires next month. Might want to get that transmission looked at before something expensive breaks. I walked back to my car, leaving Pete standing in his doorway looking like someone had just explained quantum physics to him in ancient Greek. The rest of the afternoon passed slowly. I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept wandering to Linda and what her reaction would be when she discovered the financial changes I'd made. I didn't have to wait long to find out. My phone rang at 4:30. Linda's name appeared on the screen, and I let it ring 3 times before answering. Ray, what the heck did you do to our bank accounts? Her voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Made some adjustments. Security purposes. Security purposes. Ray, I can't access our savings. My credit card was declined at the grocery store. What's going on? Maybe you should ask Pete. I hear he's good with financial planning. Silence on the other end of the line, long enough that I wondered if she'd hung up. I don't know what you think you know, she said finally, but I know you've been lying to me for months. I know about the house on Oak Street. I know about your plans to consult a lawyer. I know about Pete giving you a key to his place. Another silence, shorter this time. Ray, let me explain. Nothing to explain. You made your choice. Now you get to live with the consequences. What about Megan? You can't just cut off access to our money. She needs things, school expenses. Megan will be fine. I'll take care of her needs directly. You, on the other hand, might want to start looking for a second job. I hung up before she could respond. Tanya was watching me from across the office, eyebrows raised. That sounded pleasant. Linda just discovered that actions have consequences. Novel concept for her. You cut off her access to your accounts? Our accounts, which are now my accounts. Ray, I'm all for making cheaters pay, but don't do anything that's going to hurt you legally. You've got Megan to think about. She was right, of course. Everything I'd done was legal, aggressive, but legal. I hadn't stolen money or hidden assets. I'd simply exercised my rights as the primary account holder to protect our family's finances from someone who was planning to betray that family. My phone buzzed with a text from Linda. We need to talk. I'm coming to the lot. I showed the message to Tanya, who shook her head. This should be interesting, she said. Want me to stick around for moral support? Might be better if you head home. This could get ugly. You sure? I'm sure. Tanya gathered her things and headed for the door, then stopped. Ray, don't let her manipulate you. She's had months to practice her story, and she's going to try every trick in the book to make this your fault somehow. Thanks, I'll remember that. Linda arrived 20 minutes later, driving fast and parking crooked across 2 spaces. She stormed into the office like a woman on a mission, her face flushed with anger and something that might have been fear. "Ray, we need to talk about this situation." "What situation would that be?" "Don't play games with me. You know exactly what I'm talking about." I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. Even angry and panicked, Linda was still an attractive woman. I could see why Pete had been interested, why she'd been able to convince herself that she deserved something better than a used car dealer with calloused hands and a modest bank account. "I'm not playing games," I said. "I'm protecting my family's assets from someone who's been planning to steal them." "Steal them? Ray, that's our money. Money we earned together." "Money I earned while you were playing house with Pete Rinaldi." Linda's composure cracked completely. "How long have you known?" "Long enough. The question is, how long has it been going on?" She sat down in the chair across from my desk, suddenly looking older than her 35 years. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because what I think is that my wife has been having an affair for months, planning to leave me and moving money around to set up her exit strategy. Am I wrong about any of that?" "It's complicated." "No, it's really not. You made a choice. You chose Pete over me, chose deception over honesty, chose to blow up our family for whatever it is you think he's offering you." "He makes me feel alive again, Ray. When was the last time you and I had a real conversation? When was the last time you looked at me like I was more than just the person who does your laundry and cooks your dinner? When was the last time you gave me a reason to?" The words came out harsher than I'd intended, but they were true. Linda had been emotionally distant for months before the affair started, treating our marriage like a business arrangement rather than a partnership. "So this is my fault?" "This is your choice, and now you get to live with it." Linda stood up, her face hardening. "Fine. If that's how you want to play it, I'll call a lawyer tomorrow. We'll see how your little financial games hold up in court." "Go ahead, but you might want to ask Pete to pay for that lawyer, since you don't have access to our money anymore." She headed for the door, then turned back. "What about Megan? What about her?" "She's going to need things. School clothes, activities, college savings. I'll take care of Megan. She's my daughter, too." "Ray, please, can't we work this out like adults, for her sake?" For just a moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I'd married, the one who used to laugh at my jokes and fall asleep on my shoulder during movies, the one who'd cried when Megan took her first steps and stayed up all night when she had pneumonia at age 6. But that woman had made her choice months ago when she started sneaking around with Pete Rinaldi. "Adults don't lie to each other for months," I said. "Adults don't make secret plans to destroy their families. Adults don't hand out keys to their lover's house while their husband is working to pay the bills." Linda's face went white. "You followed me." "I didn't have to. Small town, Linda, people see things, people talk." She left without another word, tires squealing as she pulled out of the lot. I sat in the office for another hour, watching the sun set over Millfield and thinking about how quickly a life could change. This morning, I'd been a married man with financial problems and a failing business. Tonight, I was separated, probably headed for divorce, but at least I wasn't being lied to anymore. My phone rang. Megan's name on the caller ID. "Dad, Mom's really upset about something. She won't tell me what's wrong, but she's been crying and making phone calls all evening." "Don't worry about it, honey. Your mom and I are having some problems, but it's not your fault and it's going to be okay." "Are you getting divorced?" Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. "I don't know yet, but whatever happens, you're the most important thing in the world to both of us. That's never going to change. Can I come stay with you for a while? Mom's kind of scary when she's upset like this." "Let me work on that. In the meantime, try to stay out of her way and focus on your homework. And Megan?" "Yeah? I love you. No matter what happens between your mom and me, that's never going to change." "Love you too, Dad." After she hung up, I sat in the growing darkness and planned my next move. Linda thought she could outmaneuver me with lawyers and tears and appeals to my better nature. She was about to learn that the nice guy she'd been taking advantage of for 15 years was gone, replaced by someone who understood that sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. The next morning brought the first real test of my new approach to dealing with Linda. She'd apparently spent the night making phone calls, because by the time I got to the lot, Tanya was already fielding inquiries from people who'd heard various versions of our marital troubles. "Mrs. Patterson from the church called," Tanya said, handing me a cup of coffee. "Apparently, Linda told her you'd been emotionally abusive and she was afraid for her safety." Emotionally abusive. That's what she said. Also that you'd stolen money from joint accounts and were trying to leave her homeless. I had to admire Linda's strategy. Get the story out first, frame herself as the victim, make me look like the villain. In a small town like Millfield, perception often mattered more than facts. "What did you tell Mrs. Patterson?" "That she should probably get both sides of the story before passing judgment. But Ray, this is going to get ugly fast if Linda's spreading that narrative around town." She was right. I needed to control the story, and I needed to do it quickly. My first call was to Frank Morrison, who owned the bookstore where Linda worked. Frank was a decent guy, mid-60s, who'd been running the store for 20 years. He knew Linda well, but he also knew me from the various community events and school fundraisers we'd both supported over the years. "Frank, it's Ray Dempsey. I wanted to give you a heads up about something that might affect Linda's work situation." "Oh, hey, Ray. What's going on?" "Linda and I are having some marital problems. She's been spreading some stories around town that aren't exactly accurate, and I thought you should know in case it affects the store's reputation." "I'm sorry to hear that. Linda mentioned you two were having some difficulties. Did she mention that she's been having an affair for the past several months?" Silence on the other end of the line. "I've got documentation if you need to see it," I continued. "Photos, text messages, the works. I'm not trying to get Linda fired, but I thought you should know what's really going on before you hear it secondhand from someone else." "Ray, I appreciate you calling. Linda's a good employee, but if there's going to be drama affecting my business, I understand completely. I'm not asking you to fire her, just asking you to keep an open mind if people start talking." After I hung up, I made similar calls to 3 other business owners in town. Not to damage Linda's reputation exactly, but to make sure my side of the story was being heard alongside hers. Next, I drove to the courthouse and filed for legal separation. The paperwork was straightforward, and I made sure to request temporary custody of Megan based on Linda's emotional instability and recent erratic behavior. I also filed a motion to prevent Linda from removing any property from our house without court approval. The process took most of the morning, but by noon, I had official documentation of our separation and a court date scheduled for the following week. My phone had been buzzing with messages all morning. Linda, mostly, alternating between angry demands that I restore her access to our accounts and tearful pleas that we try to work things out. I ignored most of them, but one caught my attention. It was from Pete. "We need to talk." I called him back immediately. "Ray, look, I think we got off on the wrong foot yesterday." "Really? Which foot would that have been? The one where you've been sleeping with my wife, or the one where you've been planning to help her steal my money?" "It's not like that. Linda and we have feelings for each other. Real feelings. This isn't just some casual thing." "Oh, well, that makes it better. True love justifies everything, right?" "Ray, be reasonable. Your marriage was over long before I came along. Linda's been unhappy for years. And you decided to help her work through those feelings? Look, I'm trying to do the right thing here. Linda wants to be with me, and I want to be with her. Can't we handle this like adults? Adults don't sneak around for months lying to everyone. Adults don't make secret plans to destroy families. But since you want to handle this like adults, let me make you an adult offer." "I'm listening." You've got 24 hours to end whatever this is with Linda. Permanently. No contact, no secret meetings, no romantic phone calls. You disappear from her life completely. Or what? Or I make your life very complicated. See, Pete, I've been doing some research on your business dealings. That house you're renting on Oak Street? You're 3 months behind on the rent? The property you're supposedly flipping on Elm Street? You don't actually own it. You've got some kind of lease option arrangement that's about to expire. Your credit rating is in the toilet, and your ex-wife is considering filing a complaint with the state about those missing alimony payments. You can't prove any of that. I don't have to prove it. I just have to mention it to the right people. Small town, Pete. Word gets around fast. You're bluffing. Try me. I hung up and spent the rest of the afternoon making more preparations. I contacted a locksmith and had the locks changed on our house. I called the school and updated Megan's emergency contact information, removing Linda as the primary contact. I opened a new checking account and had my business deposits redirected there. By 5 o'clock, I'd essentially erased Linda from our shared life. She could still see Megan, still live in the house, still work at the bookstore. But she no longer had access to our money, our legal documents, or our shared assets. My phone rang just as I was closing up the lot. Linda again. Ray, this is insane. You can't just cut me out of everything. Watch me. I went to the bank today. They said I can't access our savings account. They said you closed it. That's correct. That's theft, Ray. That's our money. Was our money. Now it's my money, held in trust for our daughter's future. I'm calling a lawyer. Good luck paying for one. Pete will help me. Will he? Because Pete's got his own financial problems right now. Did he mention that he's about to lose that rental house? Or that his credit cards are maxed out? Silence. Linda, let me explain something to you. You spent months planning to betray me, to steal from me, to destroy our family. You made secret plans with another man, gave him access to our house, our bed, our life. You lied to my face every single day while you were planning your exit strategy. Ray, I'm not finished. You want to leave me for Pete? Fine, go. But you don't get to take half of everything I've worked for just because you're bored with your marriage. You don't get to destroy Megan's stability because you think you deserve better. And you sure as heck don't get to play the victim after months of deception. What about Megan? She needs her mother. Megan needs stability. She needs a parent who doesn't lie to her, who doesn't sneak around, who doesn't put her own selfish desires ahead of her daughter's welfare. You can't keep me from seeing her. I'm not trying to, but I am going to make sure she's protected from the chaos you've created. I hung up and drove home, wondering what I'd find. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, which was unusual. Linda's car was there, but no lights were on inside. I used my new key to let myself in. The house felt different somehow, emptier. I called out for Linda and Megan but got no response. A note on the kitchen table explained the silence. Staying at April's house tonight. Need time to think. L. April Henderson was Linda's best friend, a divorced woman in her late 30s who'd been through her own messy separation 2 years earlier. If Linda was staying there, she was probably getting advice on how to maximize her settlement and minimize my rights as a father. I called Megan's cell phone. Dad? Mom said I had to come with her to Aunt April's house. She said you were being mean to her and she didn't feel safe at home. Are you okay, honey? I guess. Mom's been crying a lot, and Aunt April keeps saying bad things about you. I don't really want to be here. Can you get away to talk privately? Hold on. I heard movement, a door closing. Okay, I'm in the bathroom. Megan, your mom and I are having serious problems. She's been lying to me about some important things, and now we're probably going to get divorced. Because of that guy, Pete? Smart kid. Too smart. You know about Pete? I've seen his car at the house when you're at work. Mom told me he was just a friend, but friends don't usually hang out in your bedroom with the door closed. My heart ached for her. 14 years old, and already learning that adults lie, that families fall apart, that the people you trust most can betray you. I'm sorry you had to see that, honey. It's not your fault, Dad. Mom's been acting weird for months. I just didn't know why. Listen, I'm going to do everything I can to get you out of this mess, but it might take a little time, and things might get worse before they get better. I know. Dad? Yeah? I want to live with you. I don't want to be in the middle of Mom's drama anymore. We'll work on that, I promise. After we hung up, I sat in my empty house and planned my next move. Linda thought she could manipulate the situation by taking Megan and playing the victim. She was about to learn that I wasn't the same pushover she'd been taking advantage of for 15 years. I opened my laptop and started typing. If Linda wanted to play the public relations game, spreading her version of events around town, then I'd give the town something more interesting to talk about. The letter was addressed to the editor of the Millfield Gazette, our weekly local newspaper. Dear editor, I'm writing to address some rumors that have been circulating around town regarding my separation from my wife, Linda Dempsey. While I normally wouldn't air personal matters publicly, I feel compelled to respond to false accusations that have been made against me. I have never been abusive to my wife, emotionally or otherwise. I have not stolen money or hidden assets. I have not threatened anyone or acted inappropriately in any way. What I have done is discovered that my wife has been having an affair for several months with Pete Rinaldi, a local businessman. I have documentation of this affair, including photographs and text messages. When I confronted them about their relationship, they denied it and continued their deception. I have filed for legal separation and am seeking custody of our minor daughter, not out of spite, but because I believe she needs stability during this difficult time. I'm not asking for sympathy or taking sides in what will undoubtedly be a difficult divorce process. I'm simply asking that people reserve judgment until they have all the facts. Sincerely, Ray Dempsey. I printed the letter and drove to the newspaper office, sliding it under the door with a note requesting publication in the next edition. Small towns run on gossip, but they also respect people who stand up for themselves. By morning, everyone in Millfield would know the real story, and Linda's victim narrative would crumble. My phone buzzed with another text from Pete. This has gone far enough. Meet me tomorrow at Murphy's Bar, 7 p.m. We need to settle this. I smiled as I typed my response. See you there. Murphy's Bar sits on the edge of downtown Millfield, a working-class establishment that caters to people who drink beer from bottles and pay their tabs in cash. The kind of place where conversations happen in low voices and everyone minds their own business, usually. I arrived early, ordered a beer, and took a seat at a table near the back where I could see the entire room. Pete showed up 15 minutes late, looking nervous and checking over his shoulder like he expected trouble. He'd dressed up for the occasion, pressed khakis, button-down shirt, leather jacket that probably cost more than most people in Murphy's made in a week. Everything about him screamed, trying too hard, which made sense since that seemed to be his approach to life in general. Ray, he slid into the chair across from me, signaling the bartender for a drink. Thanks for meeting me. Wouldn't miss it. What's on your mind, Pete? Look, I think we can work this out like reasonable men. Linda and I, we didn't plan for this to happen. It just did. Right. You just accidentally started sleeping with my wife. It's not like that. We connected, you know. She was lonely, unhappy in her marriage. I was going through my own divorce. We found comfort in each other. The bartender brought Pete a whiskey, which he knocked back immediately and ordered another. So you're saying this is really my fault? For not making Linda happy enough? I'm saying marriages end, Ray. It happens. The question is whether we handle this with dignity or tear each other apart. I studied Pete's face across the table. He was sweating despite the cool evening, and his hands shook slightly when he reached for his second drink. This wasn't a man who was comfortable with confrontation, which made his affair with Linda even more pathetic. She'd chosen him not because he was strong or successful, but because he was weak enough to let her control the situation. "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked. "Linda wants to be with me. I want to be with her. You want your daughter to be happy and stable. Maybe we can find a solution that works for everyone." "I'm listening. What if Linda and I moved away, started fresh somewhere else? You could have full custody of Megan, keep the house, keep your business. Clean break, no lawyers, no messy court battles." "And what does Linda get out of this arrangement?" "She gets to be happy. She gets to be with someone who appreciates her." I almost laughed. Pete actually believed he was doing me a favor by taking Linda off my hands. He had no idea that I'd already written her off, that I was more interested in making sure she paid for her betrayal than in getting her back. "Interesting proposal," I said. "But there's one problem with it." "What's that?" "You're broke." Pete's face went red. "That's not true." "Sure it is. I've done my homework, Pete. You're 3 months behind on rent for that house on Oak Street. Your credit cards are maxed out. Your ex-wife is threatening to take you back to court for unpaid alimony. That property development project you've been bragging about? The one that was supposed to make you rich? The financing fell through last month." "How do you know all that?" "Small town. People talk. And when they talk, they usually talk to other people who know how to listen." Pete drained his second whiskey and ordered a third. "Okay, so I'm having some temporary cash flow problems. That doesn't mean... It means you can't afford to take care of Linda, much less support her in the lifestyle she thinks she deserves. It means this whole affair was based on fantasy, not reality. We'll figure it out. Will you? Because I've got some news that might complicate your plans." I pulled out my phone and showed Pete a photo I'd taken that afternoon. It showed his red Charger parked outside a pawn shop on the other side of town. "Pawning your car title already? Things must be worse than I thought." Pete stared at the photo, his face going pale. "You've been following me. I've been protecting my interests. See, Pete, I realized something today. You're not the problem. You're just a symptom. The real problem is Linda and the way she thinks she can manipulate people to get what she wants. Linda's not manipulating anyone. She's just trying to find happiness." "At whose expense? Mine? Megan's? Yours?" I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Let me tell you what's really going to happen, Pete. Linda's going to bleed you dry, trying to maintain the lifestyle she thinks she deserves. She's going to expect you to pay for lawyers, for a nice apartment, for clothes and dinners, and all the things she thinks she's entitled to. And when you can't deliver, when your credit runs out and your schemes fall apart, she's going to move on to the next guy. You don't know her like I do. I know her better than you ever will. I've been married to her for 15 years. I've watched her manipulate situations to get what she wants, watched her play victim when things don't go her way, watched her justify lying and cheating as long as it serves her purposes." Pete was quiet for a long moment, staring into his drink. "So what do you want from me?" he asked finally. "I want you to disappear, tonight. Pack your stuff, get in whatever car you can still afford, and leave town. Don't contact Linda, don't try to explain, just go." "And if I don't?" I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Then I make your life very interesting. See, I know some people who might be curious about those missing alimony payments. I know some creditors who might want to have a conversation about your outstanding debts. I know some landlords who might be interested in your current address. You're threatening me. I'm educating you. There's a difference." Pete finished his third whiskey and stood up, swaying slightly. "You think you've won something here, Ray? You think destroying my life is going to fix your marriage? My marriage is over, has been for months, thanks to you and Linda. But my daughter still has a future, and I'm not going to let you two destroy that too. Linda loves me. Linda loves the idea of you, the fantasy of starting over with someone new, someone who hasn't figured out who she really is yet. But you're broke, Pete. You can't afford her dreams, and when she realizes that, she'll drop you faster than a hot potato. Pete stumbled toward the door, then turned back. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. I finished my beer and drove home, feeling better than I had in weeks. Pete was weak, desperate, and scared. He'd fold within a day or two, probably leave town like I'd suggested. Without him, Linda would be alone, facing the consequences of her choices without a safety net. The house was still empty when I got home. I checked my messages and found 3 voicemails from Linda, each one more frantic than the last. Ray, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Ray, pick up your phone. People are saying terrible things about me around town. What did you do? Ray, I know you're angry, but think about Megan. Do you really want to put her through a nasty divorce? Call me back. I deleted all 3 messages without calling back. The next morning brought confirmation that my letter to the newspaper had hit its target. Tanya arrived at the lot with a copy of the Millfield Gazette and a grin on her face. Have you seen this? She spread the paper on my desk. My letter was printed in full on the editorial page, under the headline, Local Man Responds to Separation Rumors. How are people reacting? Mixed, mostly. The church ladies are scandalized that you aired your dirty laundry in public, but most people seem to appreciate you setting the record straight. Mrs. Patterson called this morning to apologize for believing Linda's story without hearing your side. My phone rang. Linda's name on the caller ID. Ray, what have you done? People are staring at me, whispering behind my back. Mrs. Morrison asked me not to come to work today because customers were asking questions about the newspaper story. Actions have consequences, Linda. You wanted to play the victim, so I gave people the facts they needed to judge for themselves. You humiliated me, in front of the entire town. You humiliated yourself. I just made sure people knew the truth. This is cruel, Ray, even for you. Cruel? You want to know what's cruel? Lying to your husband for months while you plan to destroy his life, using your daughter as a pawn in your schemes, spreading false stories about abuse to cover up your own betrayal. I never said you abused me. Mrs. Patterson says otherwise. So do 3 other people who called to check on my emotional stability after hearing your version of events. Linda was quiet for a moment. What do you want from me, Ray? I want you to face the truth about what you've done. I want you to stop playing games and accept responsibility for your choices. And then what? You'll forgive me? We'll go to counseling and work things out? No. Then we'll get divorced like adults, work out custody arrangements that protect Megan, and move on with our separate lives. Ray, please. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can't fix 15 years of taking each other for granted. We can't fix months of lies and betrayal. And we sure can't fix the fact that you chose another man over your own family. I hung up and turned to Tanya, who'd been pretending not to listen while organizing files. That sounded final, she said. It was. Linda's still trying to manipulate the situation, but she's running out of options. Pete's probably going to bail on her soon, and without him, she's got nothing. What makes you think Pete's going to run? Because he's weak, broke, and scared. Men like Pete don't stick around when things get complicated. I was right. By noon, word was spreading through town that Pete Rinaldi had left Millfield sometime during the night, taking only what he could fit in his car. His landlord found the rental house empty, with a note saying he'd gone to pursue opportunities elsewhere. Linda called again at 2 o'clock, crying, "He's gone, Ray. Pete left town without even saying goodbye. He just disappeared." I'm sorry to hear that. I wasn't, but it seemed like the appropriate response. No, you're not. You're happy about this. You probably threatened him or something. I had a conversation with Pete last night, a very civilized conversation about the reality of his situation. What did you say to him? The truth, that he couldn't afford you, that this whole affair was based on fantasy rather than reality, that he was in over his head financially, and emotionally. You destroyed my relationship. Your relationship destroyed itself. I just pointed out the obvious. Linda was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was small and defeated. What happens now? Now you come home, we sit down with Megan, and we explain that we're getting divorced, but that we're going to handle it like adults who care more about our daughter than about hurting each other. And then? Then we figure out custody, property division, and how to move forward. No lawyers if we can help it, no more public drama, no more games. Ray? Yeah? I'm sorry, for all of it. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry. It was the first honest thing she'd said to me in months. I know you are, Linda, and I'm sorry too. Sorry we let our marriage get to this point. Sorry Megan has to go through this. Sorry we couldn't figure out how to be happy together. Can I come home tonight? It's your house too. Of course you can come home. Will you be there? Where else would I go? That evening, Linda came home. She looked older, worn down by the events of the past week. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd shared thousands of meals, helped Megan with homework, planned family vacations, and talked honestly for the first time in years. I don't know why I did it, she said. The affair, the lies, all of it. I just felt so trapped, so invisible, like I was disappearing a little more each day. I felt that too. Like we were just going through the motions, like we were roommates instead of husband and wife. Pete made me feel interesting again, like I was worth paying attention to. I should have been doing that. I should have been the one making you feel interesting. We both made mistakes, Ray. I just made bigger ones. We talked until almost midnight, working out the basic framework of our divorce. Linda would keep the house and primary custody of Megan. I'd keep the business and pay child support. We'd split our debts and what little savings remained. No lawyers, no court battles, just two people trying to end their marriage with some dignity intact. It wasn't the ending either of us had imagined when we got married 15 years ago. But it was honest, and after months of lies and deception, honesty felt like a gift. The next few weeks fell into a strange routine. Linda and I lived in the same house but led separate lives, like polite strangers sharing space while we worked out the details of our divorce. She slept in the guest room. I kept the master bedroom. We took turns cooking dinner and helping Megan with homework. We were civil, even friendly at times, but the intimacy was gone forever. Megan handled the situation better than either of us expected. She was hurt and confused, of course, but she seemed relieved that the tension and secrecy were finally over. No more hushed phone conversations, no more mysterious errands, no more walking on eggshells around her parents' failing marriage. I'm glad you guys are being nice to each other, she told me one evening while we worked on her math homework. April's parents screamed at each other for months when they got divorced. It was horrible. Your mom and I made mistakes, but we both love you more than anything. That's never going to change. I know, Dad, and I'm glad Pete's gone. He was creepy. Creepy how? Just the way he looked at me sometimes, like he was trying to figure out how to get rid of me so he could have Mom to himself. The comment bothered me more than I let on. I'd been so focused on the betrayal and financial implications of Linda's affair that I hadn't considered how Pete's presence might have affected Megan. The thought of him making my daughter uncomfortable added another layer of anger to an already complicated situation. Linda found a new job at the library, which paid less than the bookstore, but came with better benefits and more stable hours. She seemed different since Pete left, quieter, more thoughtful, less defensive about everything. Sometimes I caught her watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time in years. "Do you hate me?" she asked one evening while we were cleaning up after dinner. "No, I'm angry, disappointed, hurt, but I don't hate you. I hate myself sometimes, for what I put you through, what I put Megan through. Hating yourself won't change anything. Focus on moving forward. Is there any chance we could try again? Counseling, maybe? Or just starting over? I considered the question seriously before answering. Linda, I think we're better people apart than we were together, at least toward the end. Maybe we just grew in different directions. She nodded, tears in her eyes, but didn't argue. The divorce papers were filed on a Thursday morning in April. Linda and I sat in the courthouse waiting room like business partners dissolving a company rather than spouses ending a marriage. The whole process took less than an hour. That's it? Linda asked as we walked out of the courthouse. That's it. 60 days and it's final. 15 years and it ends with a stack of paperwork. It ended months ago, Linda. This is just making it official. We drove home in separate cars, and I spent the afternoon at the lot trying to focus on work. Business had actually improved since the divorce proceedings started. Apparently, the community drama had generated enough curiosity to bring in new customers. People came to gawk at the guy whose wife had cheated on him, but they left with cars. You're like a celebrity now, Tanya joked. The wronged husband who fought back and won. I don't feel like I won anything. You kept your dignity, protected your daughter, and got rid of a woman who was making you miserable. Sounds like winning to me. Maybe she was right. I'd gone into this situation feeling like a victim, but I'd come out of it feeling like someone who'd taken control of his life. Not the outcome I'd hoped for, but better than the alternative. That evening, I was closing up the lot when a familiar red Charger pulled into the parking area. My first thought was that Pete had returned, but the driver who got out was a woman I didn't recognize. Mr. Dempsey? I'm Sharon Rinaldi, Pete's ex-wife. She was attractive in a tired sort of way, probably late 30s, with the look of someone who'd been through some difficult times recently. What can I do for you, Mrs. Rinaldi? I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For whatever you said to Pete that made him leave town? He's been dodging his alimony payments for months, but suddenly he called last week and said he was wiring me everything he owed plus interest. I didn't tell him to pay you. Maybe not directly, but he was terrified of something when he called, said he was leaving town for good and wanted to clear up all his debts before he left. Where did he go? Florida, I think, or maybe Texas, somewhere far away from here. She smiled for the first time since arriving. The point is, he's gone, and he paid what he owed. My lawyer says I might actually be able to buy a house now. I'm glad things worked out for you. Pete told me about the situation with your wife. I'm sorry that happened, but I'm not surprised. Pete has a pattern of going after married women. Makes him feel powerful, I think. Your marriage ended because of an affair? 3 affairs that I knew about. Probably more that I didn't. Pete likes the chase, the excitement of sneaking around. But once the novelty wears off, he gets bored and starts looking for the next conquest. Did you ever meet Linda? Once. Pete brought her to a restaurant where he knew I'd be having dinner with friends. Wanted to show her off, I think. She seemed nice enough, but naive. Like she really believed Pete was going to change his life for her. After Sharon left, I sat in my office thinking about what she'd said. Pete hadn't left town because of my threats about his debts. He'd left because he was already getting bored with Linda, already looking for his next adventure. The affair that had destroyed my marriage had meant nothing to him, just another conquest in a long series of married women who'd mistaken his attention for love. I felt sorry for Linda, which surprised me. She'd blown up our family for a man who'd never had any intention of building a life with her. She'd sacrificed 15 years of marriage for a few months of excitement with someone who saw her as disposable. When I got home, Linda was in the kitchen making tea. She looked up when I entered, and I could see she'd been crying. Bad day? I asked. I ran into April at the grocery store. She said some things that made me realize what an idiot I've been. What kind of things? That Pete had a reputation around town for chasing married women, that everyone knew he was broke and lying about his business success, that I was just the latest in a long line of women who'd fallen for his act. Linda sat down at the table, cradling her mug like it was the only warm thing in her world. I threw away our marriage for a man who never cared about me at all, she said. How pathetic is that? Pretty pathetic, I agreed, sitting across from her. But also human. We all make mistakes when we're unhappy. Were you unhappy, Ray, in our marriage? Yeah, for a long time. But I thought that was just how marriage was supposed to be after 15 years. Comfortable, but not exciting. I thought I deserved excitement. I thought I was missing out on something. Maybe you were. Maybe we both were. Linda looked at me across the table, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago, before the responsibilities and disappointments and gradual erosion of dreams had worn us both down. Do you think we could have fixed it, if I hadn't had the affair? I don't know. Maybe. But we'll never know now. I'm sorry, Ray. For all of it. I know you are. And I'm sorry too. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, two people who'd shared a life together and were now learning how to let it go. Outside, spring was turning into summer, and the world was moving forward whether we were ready or not. The divorce became final on a Tuesday morning in June. Linda and I didn't go to the courthouse. There was no ceremony, no final hearing, just a piece of paper that arrived in the mail declaring our marriage officially over. Megan was at summer camp, so Linda and I marked the occasion by sitting on the front porch drinking coffee and watching our neighbors go about their daily routines. Feels strange, Linda said. Being single again after all these years. Yeah, strange, but not necessarily bad. Are you going to start dating? Eventually, maybe. What about you? I think I need to figure out who I am when I'm not somebody's wife or girlfriend. It's been a long time since I was just Linda. You'll figure it out. Will we be okay, Ray? As friends, I mean, for Megan's sake. We'll be fine. Better than fine, probably. And we were. The anger faded gradually, replaced by something that felt almost like friendship. We shared custody of Megan without drama, attended her school events together, even had dinner as a family occasionally. Not the family we'd started out to be, but a functional one nonetheless. Linda eventually started dating again, a librarian from the next town over who seemed like a decent guy. I went out a few times with a woman who ran a flower shop downtown, though nothing serious developed. The car lot prospered. Turns out that surviving a public marital scandal with dignity was good for business. People respected the way I'd handled the situation, and word of mouth brought in customers from surrounding towns. 6 months after the divorce was final, I was working late at the lot when Tanya knocked on the office door. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "Says it's personal." The someone turned out to be Pete Rinaldi. He looked different, thinner, older, wearing clothes that had seen better days. The cocky confidence was gone, replaced by something that looked like desperation. "Hello, Ray." "Pete, heard you were in Florida." "Was. Things didn't work out." "Sorry to hear that. Look, I know you probably don't want to see me, but I need to talk to you about something." "I'm listening." "I'm in trouble. Bad trouble. I owe money to some people who don't accept late payments." "What's that got to do with me?" "I need a job, something steady, something that pays cash. I thought maybe you could use help around the lot." I stared at him for a long moment, trying to process what I was hearing. The man who'd destroyed my marriage was asking me for a job. You've got to be kidding. I know how it sounds, but I'm desperate. These people I owe money to, they're not the kind who just send collection notices. Maybe you should have thought about that before you started sleeping with other men's wives. Ray, please. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you and Linda and Megan, but I'm asking for help here. And I'm telling you to get off my property before I call the police. Pete's face crumpled. I don't have anywhere else to go. That's not my problem. Ray, they're going to hurt me. Really hurt me. Then maybe you should have made better choices. I walked back into the office and closed the door. Through the window, I watched Pete stand in the parking lot for several minutes, looking lost and defeated. Finally, he got into a beat-up sedan that had seen better days and drove away. Tanya appeared at my shoulder. That was Pete? That was Pete. He looks terrible. He looks like a man who's finally facing the consequences of his actions. You're not going to help him? Why would I help him? Because you're a decent person? Decent people don't destroy families for their own entertainment. Tanya nodded, but didn't say anything else. I went back to work, but I couldn't stop thinking about the fear in Pete's eyes. Whatever trouble he was in, it was serious. 2 days later, I read in the newspaper that Pete Rinaldi had been found beaten unconscious behind a bar in the next county. He was in the hospital with multiple injuries but was expected to survive. I felt no satisfaction at the news, but no sympathy either. Pete had made his choices, and now he was living with the results. Just like Linda had, just like I had, just like everyone does eventually. Life moved forward. Megan started high school and joined the debate team. Linda got promoted to head librarian and seemed genuinely happy for the first time in years. I expanded the car lot and hired 2 more employees. Sometimes I wondered what would have happened if Linda and I had tried harder to save our marriage, if we'd gone to counseling or taken a vacation or just talked honestly about our problems before they became insurmountable. But mostly, I was grateful for the way things had turned out. The divorce had been painful, but it had also been necessary. We'd all learned things about ourselves and each other that we needed to learn. We'd all grown in ways that wouldn't have been possible if we'd stayed trapped in a marriage that wasn't working. The last time I saw Pete was at a gas station 6 months later. He was pumping gas into the same beat-up sedan, moving carefully like someone whose ribs hadn't quite healed properly. Our eyes met across the parking lot, but neither of us acknowledged the other. He looked like a man who'd learned some hard lessons about the difference between fantasy and reality, between wanting something and being able to handle the consequences of getting it. I finished filling my tank and drove home to the apartment I'd rented near Megan's school. It was smaller than the house I'd shared with Linda, but it was mine. No shared spaces, no compromises, no walking on eggshells around someone else's moods. That evening, Megan came over for dinner. She was 15 now, taller and more confident than the confused 14-year-old who'd watched her parents' marriage fall apart. "Mom's dating that librarian guy pretty seriously," she said while we cooked pasta together. "Good for her. Do you like him?" "He's okay. Kinda boring, but in a good way. Like, he's not going to disappear in the middle of the night or lie about who he is. Boring can be underrated. What about you, Dad? Are you dating anyone?" "Not seriously. I'm still figuring out who I am when I'm not married to your mother." "Are you happy?" I considered the question while stirring sauce. Was I happy? Not in the simple, uncomplicated way I'd been happy as a young man. But there was a satisfaction in building a life on my own terms, in making decisions based on what I wanted rather than what would keep peace in a failing marriage. "Yeah," I said finally. "I think I am happy. Different kind of happy than I expected, but happy." "Good. You deserve to be happy, Dad. So do you. So does your mom. Even Pete. Even Pete. Though he's got a lot of work to do to get there." We ate dinner and watched a movie, just a father and daughter spending time together without drama or hidden agendas or secrets. Simple. Honest. Real. Later that night, after Megan had gone home to Linda's house, I sat on my small balcony looking out over Millfield. The town looked peaceful in the darkness, like a place where people could start over if they needed to, where mistakes could be forgiven, if not forgotten. I thought about the man I'd been a year ago, angry, betrayed, focused on revenge and proving I wasn't the victim everyone thought I was. That man had gotten what he wanted. Linda had paid for her betrayal. Pete had faced consequences for his actions, and I'd emerged from the wreckage with my dignity intact. But somewhere along the way, revenge had stopped being the point. The point had become building something better from the pieces of what had been destroyed. My phone buzzed with a text from Linda. "Thanks for having dinner with Megan tonight. She needed some dad time." I texted back, "Anytime. How are things with you?" "Good. Really good. Different, but good. I'm glad." "Ray?" "Yeah? I know I've said this before, but I really am sorry. For all of it." "I know you are. And Linda? I forgive you. Completely." There was a long pause before her response came. "Thank you. That means more than you know." I put the phone away and went to bed, feeling lighter than I had in months. The story of Ray and Linda Dempsey was over, but the stories of Ray Dempsey and Linda Dempsey were just beginning. And for the first time in years, I was looking forward to finding out how they would end. The revenge I'd planned had worked exactly as intended. Linda had lost Pete, lost her job temporarily, lost her standing in the community, and learned some painful truths about herself and her choices. Pete had lost everything: his money, his reputation, his safety, and ultimately his freedom to make the same mistakes again. But the real victory wasn't in their punishment. It was in the fact that all of us, Linda, Pete, Megan, and me, had survived the destruction of our old lives and were building new ones. Better ones, built on truth instead of lies, on reality instead of fantasy. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to let someone else's betrayal destroy your capacity for happiness. Sometimes winning means walking away from the wreckage with your integrity intact and your future still ahead of you. The rest, as they say, is just details.